So, welcome to the third session of our work here at the Mastering Academic Group. Mastering Academic Writing Group. And today we are going to talk about assuring coherence of wording. As usual, let's begin with a quote. Today's quote is about coherence, and it emphasizes that the ideas of a text are fully understood only when they are connected and flowing on the same wave to make the text functions as a unit. That's what is important. Coherence means that everything flows as a song. Okay? And this is the agenda for the third session of our group. And as usual, the first point of the agenda is to talk about the exercise that was given to you the previous week. It is the one that you were expected to produce. Let's begin by talking about this is an example of how you applied the idea, the concept of a meal paragraph. Okay? If you check it, and you are going to check it, you will see that this paragraph reflects the concept of meal paragraph. And that's very, very important. And I'm proud of that because I can see that you are grasping the idea that I want to express. And here you have an example of your reflection upon how you have approached the task of writing paragraphs so far. We can discuss it then in the question and answer section, but please look at this and think if you can identify with it and what aspects of it catch your attention, okay? And we talk about that in the question and answer section if you want. So let's go into the content of today. It says that any dissertation must fulfill the requirement of being consistent. If it doesn't, then the dissertation, the findings presented, and the conclusion discussed cannot be considered valid and credible. How can you believe that a finding or a conclusion is valid if it is based on grounds that don't have strong support or have changed throughout the dissertation? So the term consistency is tied to one we have discussed before here, which is coherence. And coherence is an interpretative element that is achieved by means of linking the ideas expressed by the text while also connecting them to the context in which they are expected to communicate the message. Okay, that's coherence. And as we have pointed out in other webinars, there are three types of coherence in a dissertation. Coherence of wording, which is the focus of today's meeting. Coherence of idea, that will be discussed next week. And coherence of writing habits. The focus of today is coherence of wording. It is also called textual coherence. Some texts are perceived as easy to read, while others require too much effort to interpret. Then text readability is the result of the interconnection between text surface, which is elements like words, grammar, style, etc., and the concepts and relationships that underline it. In other words, wording should not only be right from the grammatical point of view, but also express the right concepts and their relationship. But how to achieve coherence of wording? Coherence of wording is achieved by means of action like applying the rules associated to the type of text that is expected in a dissertation, using the language devices that assure a cohesive text surface, for example, signal words and phrases, linking concepts and relation explicitly or implicitly, using the same wording for essential elements and paraphrasing other elements. Let's explain each one of those actions so you can incorporate them to your writing dissertation lunchbox. Okay? You are creating a lunchbox. And the first action that you should perform to assure coherence of wording is to apply the rules that are tied to the dissertation or the thesis. In this slide, you have the rule which refers to include in the dissertation the parts that are expected to be present in it. The parts mentioned are what constitute the most common structure, but your university may require a different structure, and therefore you have to follow that specific rule. And here you have other rules that are associated to the type of text that a dissertation is. First, produce a text that reflects the characteristics of academic writing. We have discussed this before, but it's always good to talk about them again, so even new people that are attending or listening to our meetings can have the right idea. So when we say that it reflects the characteristic of academic writing, is because it is formal in terms of vocabulary used, no colloquial expression, abbreviation of verbs, no contraction, not sexist or racial phrases, no emotional language. Explicit in relation to the message communicated. Be sure of what you intend to say and also of saying it. Precise in relation to terms, sentences, figures, and data used. Also in relation to the focus of each paragraph and section. Unbiased in relation to the way you express and use your own points of view. Your goal is to inform or produce persuasive arguments that can be evaluated. Responsible to provide evidence that support claims, manage information ethically, acknowledge sources, and understand them deeply. Second, use the required referencing style accurately. Third, acknowledge sources accurately and ethically. Fourth, avoid anthropomorphism. What a name. Which is to attribute human characteristics to animals or inanimated sources. For instance, APA manual states that an experiment cannot attempt to demonstrate, control unwanted variables, or interpret findings, nor can tables or figures compare. They can only show or indicate, and you have to be aware of that. Never say, this experiment demonstrated or this table demonstrates. No, they can only show or indicate because they are not human beings. And finally, use specific and illustrative levels of headings and follow the referencing style norms about heading if it has them. Not all referencing styles have rules about format and about headings and subheadings. Some of them have especially APA. Okay? Let's see some examples of what you should not do regarding the application of those rules. Look at these counter examples and think about what part of the rule, what rule was not applied here. Okay, now let's see what rules were not applied and how to build the sentences to reflect the rules. So in the first example, the rule that was not applied for the formal aspect of academic writer, if you see that there was a contraction and you don't have to use contractions. In the second example, you are expecting not to give human characteristic or assign human actions to inanimate things. And it was done there, but you can write down the same sentence in this way. And finally, citations were not applied in the third example, since they didn't say who was the person who stated that students with external locus of control deny responsibilities. Okay? The second way of achieving coherence of wording is connecting the concepts discussed and also making the relationship among those concepts and other elements explicit. So the network of relationships are clear enough to derive conclusions and decisions from them. As we have discussed in previous meetings, the relationship among ideas and elements in a text should be made explicit by means of using transitional words that reflect the methods of logical organization that connect them. And remember that you first establish the type of relationship that exists between the ideas you want to express, and then you look for the words and phrases to make them evident. Since we have defined this method of logical organization before, let's go directly to an exercise. Please read this paragraph and determine what method of logical organization you will use to connect them. And if you wish to share your idea, you can write it down at the chat box. Welcome, Mark, and Joy. Okay, so let's check if you are on the right track. Do you choose the cause-effect method? If you did it, it's great. If you don't, if you didn't, okay, don't worry. It's just work in progress. And the third action that assures coherence of wording is intimately related to the previous one, since it refers to the words and phrases you can use to make relationships explicit. In the next slides, we will see example of them as a reminder of what you can use and find in lists in the internet. Here you have a different way of naming the same method of logical organization, so you can have another way of grasping the concept behind each one of them. Check the explanation between parentheses and evaluate if you feel more comfortable with this presentation than with the classical one. This is just another way of referring to those methods of logical organization. And this is the continuation of the list. Okay. In the next slide, you will find an exercise to practice building coherence of wording. Here you have 3 paragraphs to link. Please take 4 minutes to do this exercise. Okay. How much does your paragraph resemble this one? Why? Why not? We can then talk about that in the question and answer section. Let me tell you that I built this exercise based on a paragraph written by my mentee, Dr. Christopher Gelderks, in his dissertation, which was awarded as the best dissertation of 2012 at Jones International University, and of which I'm very proud as the person who guided him to develop it. So I'm always proud of our work together. Okay, and the last action to assure coherence of wording is using the same wording to express the pivotal elements of a dissertation. This simple action avoids changes of wording that may compromise the meaning intended. It is a common mistake that the same element has different meanings throughout the dissertation due to changes of words that causes changes of meaning, usually inadvertently, like in the example presented in the next slide. Look at this. Look at how the purpose of the study has been worded in 3 different ways in the dissertation. And such inconsistency hinders the credibility of the work because reader cannot be sure what the purpose of the study was. Besides, it shows the researcher was not clear enough about what the study was intended to do. Okay? And this is the main idea that we have discussed today. The importance that coherence of wording has to make your dissertation consistent, to make your dissertation function in a as a unit, as an effective unit. So it's time for questions and answers. Please feel free to participate. Remember that as a group, peer-to-peer is an effective method to improve. Annalyn says, in terms of word coherence throughout the dissertation, I'm doing convergent parallel mixed method research with a quantitative dominant approach. People taking part in the research in quantitative are called respondent, and in quantitative and qualitative, they are called participant. But mixed method, I don't think that there is a specific way to call them in the mixed method, but there is a word that probably can solve your problem, since it could be used both in quantitative and qualitative parts of the research, which is subjects. You can use the word subjects, and that can be used in both parts of the research. Erica, that has been very useful, as I have a tendency to try and find different ways to say the same thing. But from what you are saying, I could be better of being consistent, especially with regards to my purpose throughout. Yeah, Erica, yes. Let me tell you why. A dissertation is a different kind of text. So what your main goal is to convince people. And to convince people, you have to be consistent so people can know what you did, why you did it, and for what you did it. Okay? To do that, you have to make clear in every occurrence of the element that is the same element that you used before. So your research questions should be worded the same way throughout the whole dissertation. The problem has to be worded in the same way throughout the dissertation, and so on. And you may say, but that's boring. Yeah, but your goal is not to entertain people. Your goal is to convince people. And unless you are a very skillful writer that can make changes that don't change meaning, just repeat them. Just that. That's a good way of doing it. Anthropomorphism is acceptable to various degrees depending on one's advice, committed, and university. Advisor committed, it is usually not. It usually doesn't function in that way. But as I have always tells you, you should do what your supervisor and your committee ask you to do. It is usually not in that way, especially if you have to use APA references style. But it's more that the reason for doing that is more than stylistic reason. Why? Because it's about the concept behind the sentence, behind the idea of assigning human actions to animals or inanimated things. So when you say that the table compares, the table does not compare. The table show a comparison, and you make the comparison. Well, if that is the case, my dear, you have to know, you know what you have to do. Okay? Because the main criterion that you have is to be pragmatic. You have to finish your dissertation, produce a very good quality dissertation in the established timeline. However, be sure that your supervisor is doing or is using anthropomorphism in a conscious way and not in an unconscious way. Just ask the question. Is this valid to use to say this? If the answer is yes, you do it. If the answer is I'm not so sure, you point out what some reference style says about that. If the answer is no, yes, you don't do it. Any other question? Or do you want to go back to any slide and make me explain it deeper, or to the examples of your work from last week? Please feel free. This study intends to find out, is intended to find out. Not this study intends to find out, but this study is intended to find out. That makes the difference. Because the study does not make the decision of what it is about. You make the decision that the study has to be focused on that. To what extent is it acceptable to use abbreviation continually, because writing out long terms is very worthy? If those abbreviations are considered, are of common use, and are considered that can be understood by everybody, that's possible. And you have a trick that you can use. The first time that you mention a term or mention a theory or something that then you want to use an abbreviation with, you write down completed, and into parentheses, you write down the abbreviation. From there on, you can use the abbreviation. Yeah, but the first time that you mention autobiographical memory, you write it down completed. And then you put the, yes, as you say there, you put in between parentheses AM, and from now on, everybody, the readers know what you are talking about. In the, for instance, in the APA manual, there are two lists of abbreviation that I always use, especially in quantitative studies. Erica, it is also a good idea to have a list they can refer to. Yes, if you are expected to write down, for instance, a list of terms, definitions of terms, in that definition, you can put the abbreviation, or you can write down a separate list of abbreviation. But if you just mention it the first time, complete, and then you write down the abbreviation, everything is okay. Any other question? Any other thing that you want me to explain? Please, everybody, feel free to participate or to exchange ideas with your peers. Remember that your peers are a valuable resource for you. Okay. And this group also have a secret group in Facebook to share their products, and that's great. Let me get back to the example of how you applied last week discussion to your work. Here you have. Check this paragraph and try to establish where the concepts or the parts of a meal paragraph are. Even though no one has shared the work in the secret. Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but I check it before this morning and I say, oh, nobody shared the work. You don't need to be shy about that. You know that we are a group and that our common goal is to improve your academic writer. So the more feedback you can have, the better for all of us. So don't be shy. Don't think that the main thing is to be mean or to attack or to do it in an awful way. No. I'm sorry I haven't contributed to group this week. It has been a bit hectic after being hacked last week. Oh my God. I still don't have access to my research writing, so as I have to reinstall all my software and my data is a Scrivener and I'm waiting for them to send me my code. Yeah, okay. Sorry to hear about that, Erica. Is difficult. But the most important thing is that all of you feel that you are part of a group that has a common goal and is intended to work together, and that you can share your doubts and your certainties with other people. Yeah, it's not the safest place to go, but Adrian has created a secret group that goes, okay. And nobody that is not invited to participate can participate there. Yes, I know. Yes, I know. Okay. Any other thing? I would like to that you read this reflection and tell me if you, or tell us, it's not to me, it's to everybody, if you agree with that reflection, if you want to add something or that. Good, Annalie. That's the attitude. That's the attitude that you have to do. And we are going to talk about that in this group in 2 weeks, and in the other group, we already did it. How do you feel about the meal concept of writing a paragraph? Do you feel that it is easy for you to do it, or to apply the concept? Well, yep. It's not a very safe place, but it can be not so dangerous. In simple paragraph, yes. Yes, of course. So you need to, I mean, it's not true that you have to write down all your paragraph following, sorry, the middle concept, but most of them could be in that way. And it's a good exercise to try to write down complex paragraph in that way. Why? Because if you can do that, your dissertation will be clear enough to be read and also to be analyzed. And that's what you intend to do when you need to convince people. Any other question? Any other information that you want to share? Let me ask you about what is the value that you could assign to having discussed coherence of wording. How useful do you think today's discussion could be for you? I would like to check that. Let me go to the exercise for this one. Okay, you have to do a mini thesis proposal in the next 3 days, everything in 5 pages. Okay, what is the first step that you have to follow? Please, I ask all of you to participate in and help Annalene approach that task. If you were in the same situation that Annalene, what will you include in those 5 pages to make it a thesis proposal? Any idea? Do you think, Adrian, that that's the first step to talk about the research questions? Where did research questions come from? Come on, everybody. Yeah, okay, you find that, but let's think about that before, okay? If you close your eyes and think of what should I say so readers could know what my dissertation will be about. What should readers know that I have to provide them with? Come on. The topic Yeah, could be, but since you have only 5 pages, what is more important, the topic or what? Remember that the topic is the general area of that interests you. Even if you are not doing a master's dissertation, the first you have to include the problem. Yeah. Why? Because it's what you want to understand or solve, and from the problem you derive all the rest of elements of the dissertation. Yeah, but the next part, or one of those next part, of course, you have to include the research question. But remember, the research questions look for the answers that you will use to address the problem. So the main element is the problem, and from it you have to include the research questions. What else? Come on, what else? What, who, when, how, and why. That's for the problem statement. Okay, so you have problem statement, research question. What else do you need your readers to know in order to understand your work? The method, exactly, that's one. The methodological part, the method. What is missing in order to give a clear idea of what is happening? A clear idea of why you think that problem should be studied, a clear idea of what is behind those research questions, a clear idea of why you choose that specific method. Okay, the purpose statement is important to establish what is intended to do. Okay, and what about the focus of today's webinar on the other group, moving forward with thesis? What about literature review? And that's all you need. And you can write down that in 5 pages, because the problem statement is not more than 2 paragraphs. The research question, 1 paragraph, and the rest of the pages are used to establish the purpose, or to establish and defend the purpose, the methodology, and the literature review that gives the framework. Good, Mark. You have finished your problem and your purpose statement. From those 2 things, you can derive the rest of the elements of your dissertation. The significance of the study can be included in the problem statement. You see? So whenever you are making decisions about your dissertation, and in this case, as Annalie has to do, is to, whenever you have to give a clear picture of what you are doing or you intend to do, put yourself into the reader's shoes. Okay? Why you say that significance is hard to write, Annalie? Why? Yeah, Yeah, okay. They are 5 pages that come from hours of painstaking and thoughtful reasoning and reflection. And if you are able to put all that information into 5 pages, that means that you understand the field, the topic that you're working with, that have been able to identify a promising problem, and that you understand it so deeply that you can make it or talk about it concisely, because you base your work on the main ideas. Problem statement was about 275 with 6 citations. Yeah, that's in amount or number of words, it is okay. Yes, you can do it, Annalie. Just remember, problem statement no more than 2 paragraphs in which you address the required elements. Purpose could be just 1 paragraph, okay? And the literature review can extend 2 pages or something like that. And then the research questions, just 1 paragraph. And the methodology, 1 page, something like that. And the references and so on. Okay? Because you don't have to talk about findings because it's a proposal, right? Okay. And that's okay, Mark. Remember that you have to follow what your university has stated, and that's what you have to do, okay? But the concept is the same despite the university, in the sense that you have to talk about the problem, you have to talk about what you intend to do, which is the purpose, that you have to talk about the framework into which your work will be included, and you have to talk about how are you going to do the research, which is the methodology. Okay. Any other question? Any other things that you want to share? Let's see the exercise based on today's discussion. It consists, as usual, as a writing exercise and a reflection. In this case, you will write 2 paragraphs for your dissertation and assure the coherence of wording. Then you will reflect upon how challenging that exercise was and why. That's what you have to do. 2 paragraphs about any section of your dissertation, and you have to be careful to check that it has coherence of wording. And then a reflection about that. Is that clear? Okay. Here are the references that we have used today. And please check the last one. It's not a reference, it's a resource that we want you to know. It's a digital tool for academic writer. It has very good information about how to handle academic writing. So check it and see if it can be useful for you. We have only 2 references. The one that is a different way of presenting the method of logical organization, and if you check them, you will see that it's the same. They are the same concepts that we have talked about, but in this case, it is present it differently, and perhaps you can grasp the idea better in that way. Understand deeply, but write concisely as if each extra word will cost you $1,000. Absolutely. No problem. These are the next events here in Doctoral Net. The webinars, I think it is in November the 16th that I'm going to talk about the role of theory in research. And a week after that, how to manage theory in academic papers. Okay? Let me go back to this way of presenting the methodological. Oh, you lost internet. Methodological organization. So instead of saying addition, these people say continuation and says it's more ideas to come. It's an easy way of remember it. Okay? Or instead of change of direction, something different is coming. Okay? Or instead of sequence, there is an order. So this is a different way of approaching the same concept. So you can choose which one is most appealing to you. Okay, my dear, any other question? I'm going to end the recording. Okay.